Benvenuti amici and welcome to Life is Grape in Tuscany, where we uncork the rich traditions, delicious wines, and timeless dishes of this beautiful Italian region. I'm Rebecca Christofferson Goutennoir, your wine-centric guide through the vineyards, olive groves, cheese caves, and so much more. So whether you are living in Tuscany, coming to visit, or just have Tuscany in your heart, this podcast is aimed at you. Benvenuti amici and welcome back to Life is Grape in Tuscany. Today we're immersing ourselves in one of Tuscany's most cherished artisanal treasures, cheese. Today's guest is Toni, the founder and cheesemaker behind one of the region's most respected and in many ways innovative artisanal dairies, Corzano Paterno. Toni's journey from a novice to becoming one of Tuscany's leading cheesemakers is a remarkable life story marked by place and people. And then there's a good amount of passion, perseverance, and of course, the artistry of cheesemaking. Toni, it's truly an honor to have you with us today. Welcome.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Rebecca. It's a real pleasure.
I've personally fallen in love with your cheeses, and I know there's quite a fan club for them out there, along with, of course, the other incredible products from your farm, like your wines and your olive oils. We're especially proud of the ongoing collaboration between Grape Tours and Corzano Paterno, where
it's amazing.
Our guests have the chance to taste your exquisite cheeses and learn about your organic farming practices. So Corzano Paterno initially began with wines and olive oil, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's true.
And the addition of cheese was a brilliant move, I think. Truly sets your farm apart from the others for its high quality products across the board.
Yeah. No, it really does.
So let's hear about the context for our listeners. Could you share a little bit more about the location and the history of the farm?
Okay, well, it's a farm which my husband's uncle, bought in the late 70s, and it's 200 hectares, and it belonged to the old family of the Marchesi Nicolini from Florence. It was a big noble family in Florence, and he bought it with an idea of farming, he was Swiss, getting away from being an architect and the kind of the urban life, and wanted to build vineyards and make wine, really good wine and olives. And then eventually got some sheep to kind of graze under the olives and in the fields, just to kind of clean up the land. Didn't kind of realize, I think, if the story is right, didn't really realize that the Sardinian sheep actually make milk, unlike the kind of English and Swiss and the northern sheep, which are just for meat and for wool. And so he got the Sardinian sheep, and then obviously had to get some Sardinians to help out because they need to be milked twice a day. And with the milk, then we need to make them cheese, and then it was a bit more of a kind of ordeal more than he thought. And so that's what happened. Slowly, we had some Sardinians, and we had these sheep, and the herd grew, and grazing and buying more fields, and then, it's a long story.
You are located in Chianti Colli Fiorentini?
Yeah, between Florence and Siena.
Okay.
Near San Casciano Val di Pesa. Beautiful landscape. We've got 3 or 4 houses on the farm for tourism, and a lovely big wine cellar, a shop, lots of guests, all of Rebecca's guests which come in full every day, 3 busloads, tasting the cheese and drinking the wine, and they love it. It's a real pleasure to see.
They do.
And I'm in the dairy, and I'm always there making the cheese with other 4 or 5 of us. And so I see them pass by, always elegantly dressed. It's really quite fun to see and watch them and stuff. And everybody really appreciates it. It's a great space. I came in 1980, so it's a long time ago, the age of 16 from London, fell in love with this Swiss guy, and I've been there since, and just really, really enjoyed it. Really, it's been great to see it get bigger and bigger.
So getting back to the beginning of your journey, your English is, of course, way too good to say that you're Italian, but you have Italian blood in you, correct?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. My father's Italian. I was born in Venice. My parents split when I was 1, and then we moved to London, and so I lived with my mother and my sister. And then at the age of 16, I went to visit a friend who was living on the farm, who actually got married to the eldest son of the owner, the Swiss uncle. And she said, yeah, come and visit me. It's just an amazing place. And, you know, this was the 80s, so there was a lot of farmers around. It was very derelict. And we obviously stuck out like, really, it was crazy. It was quite weird to kind of walk around the landscape and all the farmers looking at you as if completely weirdos. But it was really nice, really lovely. And she was very happy here. And so I stayed. But yeah, fell in love and stayed. And my mother stayed in London. And I just wanted to kind of see the other side of the Italian side of mine, which was, it's half Italian, it's a lot. And I never really experienced Italy very much. Hardly spoke the language. And so it was nice to pick up that as well. And see my father as well, which was nice because he's still in Padova, still now. So every now and again I go and visit him. And then when I had my first child, my mother sold up London and bought a house very nearby, 10 minutes away from where we are. And so she was on, hands-on when the kids were born, which was lovely. That was really great.
Kids, how many?
5 kids.
Wow. Impressive.
5 kids, 1 girl and 4 boys. And I'm very happy because out of 5, 2 are working on the farm, which is great.
Yeah.
No, really, really good.
So, let's get back to also how you started with the whole cheese making, because just because you have a couple of sheep doesn't mean you have to become the best cheesemaker in the area.
Yeah, we were selling the milk to Sebastiano. He's a Sicilian guy who actually died quite recently. He lived about half an hour away from us. And we sold the milk to him until my uncle said, look, we can't go on like this because it's cost too much with the grain and the sheep and everything, too much. We've got to transform the milk and make our own cheese. And I had 2 kids in nursery and I was the only one who was slightly available. And I thought, okay, why not? I'll give it a go. But, I was brought up in London. My mother was a linguist at Oxford. My father's the art historian, director of the art university in Padova and in Naples, and completely really intellectual family. So for me, it was like a real challenge, and they were both kind of completely, what are you doing? It's like really no way. But I really enjoyed it. I went for a year to work with him, and the wife was fantastic, Annunziata. She was lovely, and she taught me all the basics of how to make just a classic pecorino, ricotta, and a marzolino. So the very classic Tuscan cheeses. And it was. I didn't get paid for the first year. I just would go like 2 or 3 times a week. And I realized that it was actually something I really like doing. I'm very hands-on with my hands. I like to kind of do things and create things. And so from then on, we built a small little dairy on the farm. And slowly began transforming the milk into cheese. And before that, Wendel, my uncle, had began a little bit making cheese in his kitchen in a big cauldron, and tried experimenting with the milk and enjoyed it as well. But it was obviously it was a small little family thing, just to taste the cheese. So this was the first kind of step of getting a proper technician in and teaching the kind of the basics and the real basics. Because I didn't even go to university, so I had no idea of the kind of food science or anything like that. So it was like really learning by watching and just like by doing, which is very much my technique. And then the first mistakes began. It's like, yeah.
Well, speaking of, one of your most famous cheeses is called Bhari Roso.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that huge mistake?
Yeah, that was a big mistake. That was me trying to make a normal pecorino. And I don't know why. It was just coming out completely flat and wrinkly and, it looked like a frog skin. It just looked horrible. And just, I thought, okay, we've still got, we had about 5 or 6 pigs at the stable, and I thought, okay, we'll just give it to the pigs. Come on, Toni, just don't beat yourself up. You're from London, you've got no idea. Just try again, it's not a problem. And so I took the cheese, and I took a massive big black sack, and I took the cheese and I started throwing it into the sack. Thought, okay, I'll bring it down to the stables, and might not even tell anybody, and just kind of be a bit secretive about it, because I was feeling a bit guilty. And then all this kind of lovely creamy liquid was splattering on the insides of the black sack, and I went down and tasted it, and it was delicious. It was really, really good. And I thought, okay, wait. So I started pulling them out of the sack again and just making them look a bit nicer. And we were quite a few of us eating at the big table at night time with the uncle and the cousin and the various young people around. And so I thought, okay, well, the best thing is just to let everyone taste it and see what they say. So I brought one of these cheeses to the meal table, and everybody loved it. And it was just a really weird feeling. It was like, hey, you don't have to do what you're trying to do. Something can happen, something different can happen, and it can also be an eye-opener and a new experience. And it was just incredible. From that moment on, it was quite easy to actually make mistakes and invent new cheeses, because I suddenly thought, well, actually, who's stopping you? I mean, there's no rules about anything, as long as it's good and obviously healthy and not, nothing's wrong with it in that sense. So I phoned up the technician, who I used to call my guru, and I told him all the mistakes. And so he came from Arezzo, and he told me basically what I did wrong. And so we went over it again and again, and I've got it. I know now I've mastered it after 30 years. It's perfect. And my uncle called it bucce di rospo, which means toad skin.
Yeah.
And it is the cheese which everybody likes the most. It's incredible. We make so much of it, and it just goes and goes and goes. And you can eat the skin, and you can,
I had a piece last night.
Yeah.
I was making a cheese plate at Formaggioteca, and I put it on, and people love it.
They love it. It's just, it's gone crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, my moment of joy with the bucce rospo was about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I got connected up. I don't know why. Contacted by, obviously it wasn't the king of Sweden, but it was somebody for him, asking if they could have the bucce rospo for his daughter's wedding.
Wow.
So someone can do the calculation when that was. I can't remember. It was probably about 6 or 7, or maybe even 8 years ago. And I was thinking, my God, how did they find out about that? And so suddenly they wanted 30 kili. So on the idea of on her banquet, of the royal banquet, there was my bucce rospo. I was just so proud.
Yeah.
So about 30 kili we sent off for the banquet. And after that, for about a year, they'd send in orders saying, we want 15 kili, we want 20 kili. And I was always, because we had all of your lovely clients who'd come into the dairy and have a look, and mainly American, and just found it so impressive and amazing. I'd always put up signs saying, cheese for the King of Sweden. And everyone was like, woo! It's a real moment of joy.
Oh, that's fabulous.
But that stopped. But I was really curious to find out how that worked. But actually, it's quite a simple one, because his wife is from Munich, the Queen, and we used to sell our cheese in the best restaurant in Munich, in Germany, and so that makes sense. That's
the connection.
Yeah. Otherwise, I just really couldn't work it out. How did that get through? But anyway, it was my moment of glory. Yeah.
So you have how many sheep? Do you say it's sheep? It's
sheep
more
cheeses?
than one. No, I'm talking about the animal now.
Sheep. How many sheep do you have?
Not sheep.
No. We have 650 sheep.
650.
Sardinian sheep. Fantastic milk. And
it's quite rich, right?
It's
the
rich.
Milk.
It is richer than cows' and goats' milk. Yes, it is. We always thermalize our milk, which means bringing it to 62 degrees. It's not pasteurized, but thermalized means that you can, if you're pregnant or if you've got any kind of problems and stuff like that, you're safe in that sense. So we just thought it'd be much easier like that. But it's higher in calories and higher in fat than cow's milk and goat's milk, but much more flexible. You can do so many more cheeses than with cow's milk and with goat's milk. It's amazing. I mean, I already do 14 different types.
Yeah.
And that's the first question people always ask me. They say, how, you know, from 1 litre of that same liquid, how can you just do 14 completely different cheeses? I mean, it's just like, it is amazing. I'm always really surprised. And then at the end of it all is the ricotta, which is completely different, which they say is not even a cheese, it's protein.
Do you agree with it not being a cheese?
Well, I don't know scientifically. I mean, yes, it would be cheese in the sense of if you're selling it in a cheese, but you know, the shop, it would be in that area, as it were. But scientifically, they say it's pure protein. Okay. So I mean, I don't know. I suppose it hasn't got any lactose. I'm not quite sure the whole. The scientific part of cheese making, as I said, I didn't go to university, so I'm
awesome.
hands-on. I'm just completely.
I think that's awesome.
It's hopeless. Yeah, no, really. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't think about how you do make, you make 14 different cheeses. Most cheesemakers around Tuscany make 5, 3, 5.
Yeah, it's more the way, I'm so surprised in Tuscany how, I mean, I'm always completely flabbergasted why there aren't more people making cheese. I mean, also the local people around, they see how well we've done. Even the 2 cheesemakers near us, you know, they haven't even, I mean, yeah, maybe they've tried a few other things, but they're still stuck on their same old pecorino, marzolino stagionato, ricotta.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, our Nero guys, particularly, maybe not, but the ones in Pienza and the ones down Grosseto and things, they do kind of, they put them under the hay and they put them under the tomato and under the ashes and this, that, and the other. But if you go into a cheese shop, they're all the same size. One's red, one's black, one's got hay on.
Correct.
You know, or one's with tartufo inside.
Yeah.
Or one's, I mean, exactly the same. They're exactly the same. It's amazing. I'm so surprised that no one's experimented, no one's gone. But I've got 2 theories on that. My theory on that is because I didn't have anybody above me, like an aunt or a mother or a father or anyone who's used to make cheese. I've got no one saying, no, we didn't do that. No, if you don't do that, that won't work. You've got to make sure you boil it up to that, otherwise it's not going to curdle. Or nobody's told me that. I've just done everything completely on my own knowledge. And I mean, you know, obviously learned from my guru, as it were. But no one above me to tell me how they used to do it or how we used to make our cheese or this, that kind of thing. And so I've had I'm much more experimental, much more free with, in the sense that also if I do go a little bit wrong, doesn't matter, I can somehow make it that it'll work. You know, I've hardly ever thrown any cheese. I think once I threw a batch of cheese away to the pigs once. But I mean, literally, 25 years ago or something. But otherwise, in some way, I've always made it that it can, you know, that
That's
it's
impressive.
that it works.
Yeah.
And sometimes from there, you've been inspired to do another cheese, and sometimes, you know, you just manage to kind of get it out and sell it to the tourists, and then that's it. Let's not do that again, kind of thing.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Funny one. But I still really enjoy it. I love it.
And
really
have you found like that you get inspiration because of your international background as well?
I used to travel a lot with my husband. He would sell the wine around the world, and I'd go. There were many years that we'd go around together. And I made this kind of pact with myself that wherever we go, I'd always go and find a dairy. And then I'd kind of be inspired and speak to the dairy people and watch them how they make it and look at their labels and see. So that's what happened in quite a few places in America, in Ireland. There are quite a few cheeses. For example, the Buccine is an inspiration from Dublin in a cheese shop. It looks very much like the Buccine label. And then and like the cheese as well, which is like a little camembert, a little brie. Again, with the sheep's milk though. This one was cow's milk. So mine is with sheep's milk, and the label is very similar to the one in Dublin, but with our same family stem and the same calligraphy that I use in all of our labels. But that was inspired from that. And then, there's been quite a few. The Lingotto is from an Australian cheese farm. They did a very similar thing. It's a technique with the mold that you put the curds in this mold, and then you cut the cheese at one point in half, and so you manage to get that long shape like that, like a lingot, and we call it lingotto d'oro, which means gold lingot. So, I mean, actually, think of it more as a Mars bar, basically. You just kind of peel it off the gold wrapping and just eat it like that because it's just so delicious. But that's, yeah, very much that's been my kind of thing, that I've always wanted to make a blue, and that might be the English tradition of the Stilton. But as the guru said at the very beginning, the blue is the most challenging, most difficult cheese to make. And it still is. I can't believe it. It's 32 years I've been in that dairy. And it's the most difficult cheese to make with a good, that each time it's going to be, doesn't have to be the same, but, you know, the good quality. It's so difficult. I mean, now Oscar, my son, is with me now for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've kind of handed the blue over to him. So he's kind of doing his own recipe, and I must say he's much better at it than I am. It's much more...
What is it about the blue cheese that makes it so difficult? What parameter is it that you
Well,
don't
Rebecca,
feel you can control?
if I knew, then I would be,
Okay.
I don't know, I would be the guru. I just don't know why. You can do the same. I know it's very important which milk you use when you make blue cheese. And it's very limited. There's a limited amount of time when you can make the blue cheese, in the sense of milk and the fat in the milk and stuff like that. But I don't know why. I mean, for example, now we've just made a blue now, but I'm quite picky as well. We just tasted it this morning. For me, it's just slightly too salty. They say blue cheese should be saltier than a normal.
Yeah, it's the saltiest
It
cheese there
but
is.
it's like, for me, it just slightly covers. You can't. I mean, it's delicious. The texture in the mouth was wonderful. The smells, everything looked great, but you just can't taste the Roquefort. You can't. There's nothing which I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I'm a bit particular, but it is. I mean, yeah, people love it and we sell it and it's not a problem, but it is a difficult one to make.
Speaking of the time, so sheep, not everybody knows this, I noticed, because for a part of the year down at the shop, we don't have any ricotta. And I have to explain to people, no, you can't have ricotta all the time because you don't have milk all the time. And ricotta, of course, is a fresh cheese, or not cheese.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit about like the rhythms of the dairy?
Well, basically, there are many dairies which manage to have milk all the way around, but I think they use a lot of hormones. But the natural cycle would be that the sheep we finish milking in end of August, and we pick up again in November. At that point, then we put in the rams, and then they start having their lambs, and then we've got lambs for Christmas, we've got lambs in Easter. That's the idea, basically, because that's when in Italy, that's when people like to eat the meat. The lamb is for Christmas and Easter time. So we try and gear it around there. But also we don't want to have too much milk in the summer. So we try and don't put the ram in with the herds too late otherwise. But if you don't have milk, then you don't have cheese, and then you don't have ricotta. So our last milk is the end of August, and we begin again in November. So in that period of time, there won't be any ricotta. And if you do see ricotta around, there's a lot of farms which use powdered milk.
Oh.
And in fact, years ago when I was working for Bastiano, people were saying to me, why don't you buy just powdered milk in? You can get it from Russia, you can get it all over, you can carry on the production all year round. But for me, it was rather awkward because that was just the time when we were doing the wine harvest, and it works perfectly for me. My husband is fanatic making wine, and that was his moment when we were picking grapes and making all the lunches. So it was perfect. We'd finish with the dairy in August, we'd begin with the grape harvest, and that would go on till, with the olives, and then you'd pick up again with the milk. It was like a perfect circle. Yeah. It really worked really well. So anyway, I'm not going to buy any powdered milk anyway. That's completely not. And I'm also quite a believer of that thing of making people wait. It's that thing of eating an orange in the summer and a strawberry at Christmas time. It's not the right season. You should wait for it. It's like the same with the Roquefort. We only have it at a certain time of year, and people always say, well, when's the blue coming out? But another month, and they're drooling by the time it comes out, and they're desperate to eat it, and it makes sense. So yeah, I think that's a bit the whole. I think it's good to be seasonal. It really means that you're using good produce.
I totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Totally. Have you experienced over the years, 30 years, 35,
Yeah,
32 years of
32
career,
years, yeah.
have you experienced any sort of local resistance, sort of criticism towards your cheeses?
At the
Yeah.
beginning, particularly from that one Sardinian who lives very nearby. And I was always surprised that he's actually still carries on. He's still got his sheep, not very many. And he still carries on making a very basic cheese, which people don't say is very good, but it's a classic, But he was, the little bit, I remember selling my cheese in his little shop nearby down in the village, and I remember him really I took the cheese away immediately. We understood he's Sardinian, I don't want anything to do with this. So I very much left his zone, his geographical zone around his farm. I didn't ever want to go in that area so that was one of the reasons why I went towards Florence. 30 years ago, I began my market in Florence, basically, because there was Bastiano, who was down underneath Tavernellen, there was Niedo, who was just before Tavernellen, and they were all in that kind of area, and I just didn't want to disturb them. They've been doing it for years, and so I went towards Florence and went much more with the tourists, because being able to speak English, and that wasn't a problem.
I remember getting the delivery from Corzano Paterno in the 90s.
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
Enoteca that I was at.
Really?
Yeah,
That was Volpeluva?
No, that was
Baldovino.
Baldovino.
Yeah, I remember you there. Yeah.
So I've known about your cheeses for a while.
Yeah, goodness
and I've been
me.
eating them. So speaking of where people could actually find your cheeses, you have a fantastic network of high quality shops and restaurants around Florence
and around
But
Florence.
sometimes I find them also in a macelleria.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot around Florence and in Florence.
Yeah.
But there's also 3 restaurants in Paris, which I'm very proud of, because that's for me my biggest challenge, is to sell our cheese in France. It's for me, that was yes, a winner. And then we had a fantastic restaurant in London, which unfortunately, with the whole Brexit story, we've had to stop with that this year, which is a real shame, because that was really great. Wonderful restaurant. And then we used to, in Copenhagen, up in Aurora, we used to have there. That was a big...
That's a Michelin star.
Yeah, it was a big one, which we used to send a lot to them, and then the guy's not there anymore, and so that stopped. But we've got some, around a bit in Germany, and a bit, we're in the island of Ibiza as well. Just sent it off this morning. Yeah, we've got quite a few around, but mainly, a bit in Rome and a bit in Milan, but mainly, around the countryside. And we go twice a week with a big van, and we just go off delivering. We prepare all the boxes beforehand, and we deliver to restaurants and to shops, gastronomic shops all around. And it's kind of slightly boring. You see it everywhere in Florence. It's really good. In all the menus, you get a selection of the cheese of Corzano Paterno. I was like, oh God, again. It's become very fashionable to make ice cream out of ricotta. We actually had some ice cream shop which made an ice cream out of our ruota del re, which is kind of one of our hardest cheeses. Actually, was so delicious, and I'm always telling them to do it again, but they never do it again. But it was really, really lovely, because there was that combination of the sweet and the salt. Really nice. But this ice cream shop is in Piazza della Passera, Gelateria della Passera, and they order about 10 ricotta. I mean, each ricotta is about a kilo and a half. They order about 10 ricotta every week. I mean, it's just incredible. And then, and the crowds are outside eating the ice cream. It's just wonderful. It's really, really satisfying. Yeah.
I think it's a little hard to ask you, but because it's kind of like saying, what are your favorite children? But do you have favorite cheeses? I'm not going to ask about the kids.
No, the kids not. I could probably say yes to some of the kids, but no. Their favorite depends, different times of the year. I mean, the most kind of interesting and kind of eccentric of the lot is the bucci di rospo, obviously, which I've already spoken about. And it always surprises me of how much we make of it and how much we sell of it. It's just incredible. Another one, which is that I've also handed over to my son Oscar because I found it quite a difficult one to deal with, but I'm really intrigued and I love it. It's Ambro, and it's like a taleggio. And I went up to the Val, up at the top near Switzerland in the area up there. Which area? What's the valley called? The Val.
One of them is called Valtaleggio.
Valtaleggio, that whole area up there, and spoke to a couple of the dairies there and how they make it, and they showed me all these square wooden boxes where they put the cheese in and they mold the cheese in there, and then it was just fascinating to see how it was very different from how I used to make cheese. And so from then on, I've ordered these lovely little wooden boxes, and we make this cheese which sits inside the box.
And it's a washed rind, right?
It's a washed rind. It's difficult to explain to the Italians that they always want to tip it out of the box. And I'm always trying to explain, if it's like a French cheese. And the ideal situation for any lady to have this cheese in the fridge, lady or man, I don't know, I shouldn't be saying lady, but anyone to have this cheese in the fridge, because all you have to do is just cover it up with its wooden lid, and it just sits in the fridge. And when you want to eat it, you just open it up the lid and just go in with your knife or a piece of bread, and because it's so soft and creamy. But the Italians just want to kind of go around with a knife, tip it out, put it on the plate, and then but it's incredible. I'm always trying to explain to them that just just keep it in the box. And it's lovely cheese. That's Ambro. Yes. It's got that lovely kind of orange colour to it. It's a lovely washed rind cheese. The last one is Dante, and that was basically one of my last big cheeses that I began making. And it's the oldest cheese. We sell it after 8 or 9 months, and I actually did, funnily enough, want a 6th child, and I really wanted to call it Dante. I don't know why I presumed it would be a boy. I suppose I've got 4 boys and 1 girl, but that was, yeah. And quite rightly, my husband said, look, that's it. We've really had enough. So I thought, okay, I'll just make a cheese called Dante. and so it's kind of a very, it's a lovely cheese. It's very kind of, again, it's a cheese which you can only make with a particular type of milk. And it's very hard. It's like a classic stagionato. But the main particularity of this cheese is the way it's matured. So going back and forward to England a lot, I went to visit Montgomery Cheddar Farm. And the old guy, who's actually died now, he taught me how he covers the cheese, the cheddars, with this... basically, it's the fat from pigs. So it's the pig's fat boiled down. It's what does he call it? The suet. They boil it down, and then they make this kind of linen wrapping around the cheese, and then put the fat around it, and then they put another layer of linen, and then another layer of fat, and the whole thing's covered up. And they're huge, big, like 10 kilo blocks of cheese. And then they sit on these wooden boards, and then they sit there for, 8 or 9 months. You just turn them around, and this little bit of mold comes through onto the material, and you just rub it down with your hand. But it is incredible after so many months that when you open it up, it's just perfect. There's not one mite or one split or one crack or anything inside which causes with the black. Sometimes the old cheeses have this kind of black crevices, and you have to throw away so much of the cheese. Yeah, and these are perfect, and the smell is just like, I don't know, strawberries and cream. I love it. They're absolutely wonderful. And that's Dante, and that gives me real pleasure, that cheese, really. Yeah.
So looking ahead, what's next for Corzano Paterno? Now, of course, Oscar is already in the dairy and has been working there. So you're handing over the torch.
I'm very much, yeah. I do enjoy it, and I keep saying every year, next year's my last year, and I'm still there. So I don't quite know when that's going to be. I think it's just going to have to kind of shove me out of the dairy at one point. It's obviously, getting older. I'm 61 now, so, it's getting, physically, it's, you're on your feet, you're in big welly boots, you're with a wet kind of big rubber apron all day on your feet in this kind of humid atmosphere. So it's not very good for your bones in the end of the day. But it's just, I love it. I still really, really love it. And he's very, very good. And we really enjoy working together. It is good fun. There'll be a moment, I think in the next 3 or 4 years, I'll start moving out slowly and give him his space. He needs his space. But he's doing really well. I'm really pleased. He's got a really good team. They're all young and enthusiastic. He's less, he's been with me now 3 or 4 years now in the dairy. He's less, I used to get bored in the sense of I couldn't do the same cheeses day after day, week after week. I'd always have to make some on-purpose mistakes or try out something different, like putting little layers of dried tomatoes inside, or putting, I don't know, kind of poppy seeds on the outside, or I was always experimenting in this. And that was quite fun because people would really enjoy that, you know, and they'd know that there'd be an experiment going for like a month or two, and then suddenly, yeah, there was cheeses with fennel seeds. I've done so many different things, and I really enjoyed that. And some really delicious cheeses.
Yeah.
And I know that one could carry on. There would be I could do another 14 cheeses probably easily, no problem. But I must say, I haven't got the energy. And you've got to maintain them and keep them going. And then you need a lot of space to mature them all. And each one has a different humidity and a different this and different that. And the client obviously wants the same type of cheese every week. And that is difficult, you know. And if you're doing it for yourself, it's one thing. But if you've got to keep a regular restaurant going, it's like, yeah, it doesn't work.
So Oscar is respecting the selection of 14
pretty much
cheeses.
he's selecting that. Yeah, I mean, exactly, the blue and the ambro he's made perfect, and he's basically, with all the cheeses I've always made, he's carried on the same recipe but perfected them all.
Yeah.
They're much more, they're all constant and kind of what's the word? They just, you know, they're all not, I don't want to say that, not the same. It's not as if they're made in an industry or anything, but they're just much more
constant.
Yeah, or kind of, I can't remember the words, kind of, I've lost the word, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They look, and so in that sense, he's better than I am in that sense. He just hasn't got that fantasy that I think maybe women have more creativity, maybe more than men. I don't really know if that's quite true, but I think in this sense, yeah.
It's good to have some persistency and continue.
Exactly.
Because that's important as well.
It is very important. And he's got much more the scientific angle as well, because that's what he did in university and everything. So he's,
Well, Toni, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today and learning more about your journey and the incredible work that you have done and still do at Corzano Paterno. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you for asking me all these questions. That's amazing. It's so lovely to talk about it.
So to all of our listeners, if you ever find yourself in Tuscany, I highly recommend tasting the cheeses, of course, of Corzano Paterno. How could you not, after hearing all these stories? And of course, it is possible to come up to Corzano Paterno. There is a tasting room, and there is a punto vendita, so a direct sales, where you can get all of the products of Corzano Paterno. We haven't even touched the wonderful wines and olive oil that are produced at the farm as well.
Yeah.
And of course, I have to remind you that if you cannot find any wheels to get up there, you can join Grape tours. We have 2 tours that go to Corzano Paterno. One is Chianti and Cheese. So there you actually get to visit the dairy from the inside. And then, of course, you have the Super Chianti tour, where we visit Corzano Paterno more to see the cellars and talk about the wine, but we also taste the cheese. So highly recommend, of course, that you take one of our tours. You can also find the cheeses at Formaggiateca Terroir in Florence, as well as in many other top quality wine bars, restaurants, and markets. So thank you once again for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode of Life is Grape in Tuscany. So until next time, salute!